Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward, Chapter 115. Yassim Del woke. In a stupor, he blearily tried to refocus his vision. The streets had emptied and the sky was dark. He felt the slick of his own blood beneath him. Numbly, Yassim checked his face, afraid of what he might find. He discovered upon rising that he had been lucky, escaping with no broken bones. Not this time. He was a mass of welts and contusions, though. The hand of the High Lord Mebalog had delivered on his master's promise. Eyes misting, his mind traveled back to the grave he had dug with his own hands at the edge of town, for his wife. Mira had been the light of his life. He shook from the memory of seeing her body lying face down, dragged away from him by Durga, the devil of a man who had beaten him earlier today. Yassim had been powerless to stop him. He had been beaten senseless when he tried to intervene. When he had woken, hours later, the cool hand of his daughter on his forehead, his wife was already gone, dead. Now this same man threatened his only daughter. He would die before he'd let the man take her. But that would not stop Durga, he knew. So he did as he was commanded. His soul felt heavy with the black deeds he had committed to protect his child. There were so many tarnishes on his soul already. He had cheated, begged, even killed to stay the hand of Mebalog. Twice he had tried to secret away his only daughter. He no longer feared for his own death. But she had been discovered each time. Durga warned that the next attempt would be her last. Nasa, his daughter. He vowed to protect her. He had begged for the help of others in the streets. The townsfolk had turned a deaf ear on his cries, however. The hand of Mebalog extended far and wide. None would aid him. Durga ensured it. Gathering his tattered rags to him, Yassim hobbled home to the small, wind-buffeted shack on the outskirts of town. His daughter waited for him there. She had dark rings under her eyes. He could easily see the signs of hunger about her thin frame. She may not have eaten yet today. Please, child, you must eat something. Look, your father has brought you cheese and meat to keep you healthy. Forcing a warm smile, Yassim reached into his pockets, only to discover the food was gone. Perhaps it had been stolen from him, or fallen away when he had been knocked senseless. I'm sorry, Nasa. I will find you more. I promise. His daughter moved forward, embracing him in her gaunt frame. He looked down and saw her smiling at him. She held him, not letting go, when eventually he began to move away. Settling down, Yassim rocked the child, murmuring that he would find more food, and that he wouldn't be gone long the next time. The wind howled outside, silhouetting the small ramshackle home as the last rays of light disappeared from the horizon. Moving away in darkness, Yassim looked back at his sleeping daughter. He had taken the sheets from his own bed to provide her more warmth. Her face looked peaceful as she slept. He wondered if she only saw this as a game. It would break his heart to tell her that they were starving. And his duty pulled him away again, leaving her alone for days to come. He had taken all the food he could steal and had left it for her. He told her not to go out into town for fear she would be robbed while he was away. There was nothing to be done for it. He prayed to the gods that she would be kept safe until he returned. Before she woke, he slipped away, closing the door behind him. Trying to work more sensation into his limbs, Yassim walked away from his home, his muscles screaming in protest after the abuse they had taken earlier. He would need to bring proof to Durga, showing beyond doubt that the highest echelons of the Merchant Council now met only days from this very spot. The small, bleak town where he had lived for most of his life was ringed on all sides by miles of desert. The town survived on trading silt with passing merchant caravans. The town attempted to hide the location of its main well to outsiders, for a single act of treachery could extinguish the lives of every soul. The town depended on a series of wells, which drew water up from far beneath the barren sand. But the secondary wells were much smaller and could not truly be counted on. If anyone were to poison them, he stopped that line of thought. They had lived on the brink of existence for years now. It was all he had ever known. The occupation by the hand of the high seat of Gastur did nothing to change this fact. It only made his path clear to him. What would stay Durga's hand from taking the life of his daughter? Would he need to kill again? He had tried to avoid the deaths of more people. There were so many already on his conscience. But he would kill again if it meant his daughter would live for another day. Wasn't the recounting of what he had seen with his own 2 eyes proof enough? No, Durga would demand more, until he could no longer give. Yassim had barely escaped after duping the man named Rasham. The man was a fledgling member of the council if his guess was right. The man's mark of station had been plain upon his skin. The small intricate tattoo that circled both palms, snaking around to the backs of his hands, gave ample evidence. To have taken such a marking falsely would surely have been a death warrant. Rasham had not come across as particularly foolish. Yassim's gambit to be welcomed into the merchant's personal pavilion had cemented his knowledge of the great gathering. Now was the time to strike. If what he had learned was correct, they only met for the space of a month's time. Yassim needed to get proof to Durga in time for him to act upon his master's wishes. If Yassim did not produce within that time something of value, his daughter's life would be forfeit. He brought the tatters of clothing around him to fend off the wind that sliced into him. Desert nights turned bitter cold as the wind raced along freely. The sun would burn him, beating down with its glare when the golden ball rose again in the sky. He would have hours yet. He was so tired. Mira, I failed you. He often thought of his wife now. Only the wind replied.